Climate scientists are always warning of impending disaster, but history has proven them wrong so many times. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Let's start off with a silly fun fact. Did you know that climate change is going to kill us all? That's the assumption you'd have if you listen to the mainstream media. And those predictions are all definitely going to come true, right? I mean, when have scientists ever been wrong? The truth is, climate change predictions have been wrong. A lot. Don't believe me? Here are 8 examples of spectacularly wrong climate change predictions. Starting with number 8. We get to hear so much about global warming, but what about global cooling? In 1970, ecologist Kenneth Watt predicted a new ice age by the year 2000, saying, "The world has been chilling sharply for about 20 years. If present trends continue, the world will be about 4 degrees colder for the global mean temperature in 1990, but 11 degrees colder in the year 2000. This is about twice what it would take to put us into an ice age." To be fair, he was close. We actually did get an ice age in 2002, then 5 more since. Watt wasn't alone in predicting global cooling. The Boston Globe, Time, Newsweek, The Guardian all ran stories throughout the 70s predicting a new ice age at the turn of the century. The New York Times ran a story about global cooling in 1978. Then, in 1979, they ran a story about how global warming would melt the ice caps. So they predicted global cooling, and the very next year predicted global warming? Remind me not to get my fortune read by the New York Times. You will be very wealthy someday, or very poor, and you will find love. Or you won't. That'll be $25 a month. Number 7. Watt's prediction about a new ice age was one of many predictions made during the first Earth Day in 1970. Another was Life magazine reporting scientists have solid experimental and theoretical evidence to support the following predictions. In a decade, urban dwellers will have to wear gas masks to survive air pollution. By 1985, air pollution will have reduced the amount of sunlight reaching Earth by 1/2. And Watt told Time magazine that at the present rate of nitrogen buildup, it's only a matter of time before light will be filtered out of the atmosphere and none of our land will be usable. Judging by my aggressive farmer stan, methinks their prediction of light being filtered out of the atmosphere around the time I was born was just a teeny bit off the mark. Here's my question. Why are their predictions so apocalyptic? It would be one thing to say air pollution will get worse, but they had to go all in and say we're all gonna die in 15 years. I haven't seen anyone so sure of such a dire warning since my buddy's doctor said he'd be dead in 15 years if he didn't change his all-chili dog diet. And that prediction was wrong too. It only took 2 years, RIP Frank. Number 6. In 1988, AFP reported that the Maldives Islands were on the brink of extinction due to rising sea levels, and that it could be submerged within 20 to 40 years, and that the eradication of the island's population could come sooner if drinking water supplies dry up by 1992 as predicted. So, how are the Maldives doing now? Horrible! If you hate picturesque beachside resorts, that is. Maldives was named the world's leading destination by the World Travel Awards 3 years in a row from 2021 to 2023. So no, the Maldives didn't face a climate reckoning. They faced an arguably much worse reckoning. Tourists. So many tourists. Maybe being swallowed by the ocean wouldn't have been such a bad thing compared to this. Number 5. All the way back in 1939, Swedish geologist Professor Hans Alman said Greenland's glaciers were melting, explaining it may, without exaggeration, be said that the glaciers, like those in Norway, face the possibility of a catastrophic collapse. For context, this prediction is 3 years older than Joe Biden. And like Biden, this prediction is still around, with publications still predicting doom, though they did take a quick detour in the 1970s to predict a new ice age. While glaciers melting at an expedited rate seems alarming, I'm beginning to think observing and reporting is the right move over assumptions of doom. Because the only thing that's definitely proven to truly be in danger of an imminent collapse is Joe Biden. Oh, he didn't fall because he's getting old, it's because of global warming. Number 4. Here's another failed first Earth Day prediction. You know that 1973 movie Soylent Green that predicted that by the year 2022, overpopulation, global warming, and pollution would lead humanity eating a product made out of people? It's people? In order to prevent mass starvation? It's so unrealistic, because some scientists thought it would happen much sooner. Stanford University biologist Paul Ehrlich, who became infamous for his predictions of climate Armageddons, gave an interview in a 1970 issue of Mademoiselle magazine where he said population will inevitably and completely outstrip whatever small increases in food supplies we make. The death rate will increase until at least 100 to 200 million people per year will be starving to death during the next 10 years. So his prediction was that the population in 1970, which is less than half of what it is today, will consume so many resources that it will cause up to nearly 4 times the amount of starvation caused throughout the history of communist regimes every year by 1980. I haven't seen a prediction that wrong since someone proclaimed that Dippin' Dots were the ice cream of the future. They weren't even the ice cream of the 90s. No one wants to eat a dessert that has the consistency of frozen hamster pellets. He honestly said hundreds of millions of people would die off every year. You know how you curse weathermen when you get a car wash and it starts to rain right after? Next time you're stuck in traffic for 2 hours because of all the not dead people on their way to work, remember to shake your fist at the sky and scream, "Elric!" And when all the smog from those cars doesn't completely block out the sun and makes your farmer's tan worse, remember to shout, "What?" Number 3. You know what? Paul Ehrlich deserves another entry on this list, all to himself. Maybe no one scientist has done more to damage the climate science movement than him, specifically his 1968 book, The Population Bomb. Not only was it full of more incorrect predictions than Nostradamus, trying to predict which stocks to invest in 430 years in the future, but it also received criticisms from Marxists, who feared his insistence that overpopulation was the biggest threat facing humanity could be used to justify genocide or oppression of minorities. Do you know how bad your ideas have to be for Marxists to worry that it could lead to genocide or oppression? That's happened in almost every major communist regime in history. Yet despite so many predictions failing to come true, Ehrlich still is portending doom to this day.
At the age of 90, biologist Paul Ehrlich may have lived long enough to see some of his dire prophecies come true.
You seem to be saying that humanity is not sustainable.
No, humanity is not sustainable. To maintain our lifestyle, yours and mine, basically, for the entire planet, you'd need 5 more Earths.
This was part of a January 2023 episode of 60 Minutes, which itself was part of a larger series of pieces CBS was running on scientists predicting a mass extinction event, with humanity's population killing off the Earth's wildlife. Which sounds terrifying until you remember Ehrlich is predicting it, so we might just be safe. Ehrlich was ridiculed for his appearance on 60 Minutes, as well as all his past failed predictions. He responded on X saying, "If I'm always wrong, so is science, since my work is always peer-reviewed, including The Population Bomb, and I've gotten virtually every scientific honor." Should someone tell him getting every scientific honor doesn't make him look good, it just makes every scientific honor look bad. This has big Dr. Fauci, I am the science vibes. Number 2. In 1989, the Associated Press reported how senior UN environmental official Noel Brown warned that rising sea levels could be the doom of us all. Entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if the global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. And before that, in 1982, the executive director of the UN's environmental program predicted an environmental catastrophe as irreversible as a nuclear holocaust by 2000. First of all, you can tell that didn't happen since I'm not recording this show on a boat. And second, why were so many of these catastrophic predictions for the year 2000? Do climate apocalypses like round numbers? Number 1. In 2009, several news outlets reported that Al Gore, former vice president and star of the environmental documentary film An Inconvenient Truth, told the UN Climate Conference that the polar ice caps would melt within 5 to 7 years. However, that was a bit of a misrepresentation. Gore didn't exactly say that. He was relaying what polar scientists told him, specifically that there's a 75% chance the entire polar ice cap will melt in summer within the next 5 to 7 years. However, polar scientists didn't actually say that, as Gore misstated what was told to him. One climatologist, who Gore cited, said, "It's unclear to me how this figure was arrived at. I would never try to estimate likelihood at anything as exact as this." So this story was a misrepresentation of a misrepresentation. Kind of like the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was a terrible adaptation of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was an extremely loose and exaggerated adaptation of real-life serial killer Ed Gein. And that's an appropriate analogy because science tends to get butchered when politics are involved. Now, while all these climate predictions have been wrong, I'm not saying we should celebrate by looting and polluting like Captain Planet villains. But we also shouldn't freak out and live our lives in a state of perpetual terror and pass a series of communist-like laws that lead to the government seizing land in the name of climate change prevention, which you can learn more about in this video. America Uncovered wouldn't exist without your support. Click that orange button to support us on Patreon. All it takes is $1 an episode, and you can set a monthly limit. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.